Hello, parents and caregivers. Thank you so much for taking just a few minutes out of your very hectic day to sit with me to go over a couple of tips that we've put together about different ways that we can talk with our kids about what it is that they are reading. In school, whether it's virtual or hybrid or in person, we really emphasize across all grade levels students talking about what it is that they are reading. In grades 3, 4, and 5, this is especially true, as students will meet with their book club groups and really dissect the books that they are reading. This might include having discussions and conversations about character traits and motivations, or the different themes present in their books, or making predictions and using text evidence to support those, and then adjusting those predictions together as they read on, or even having debates about what it is that they are reading. This is amazing to see. And it's conversations like these that we can continue at home with our own kids. Sometimes I have to admit that at the end of a very long day, I don't really know or have spoken with my kids at home about what it is that they are reading. I know that they're reading. I see them reading. I have given them plenty of books. But when I really stop and think about it, a couple of days have passed before I've actually talked to them about what it is that they are reading. And so, with that thought in mind, I come to you today as not just a teacher, but also a parent. And the tips that you see on your screen are ones that I've used myself, that other teachers have recommended, and also parents. And so, sitting with our kids, or as we're getting ready in the morning, or even setting up dinner, cooking dinner, cleaning up dinner, getting ready for the next day at the end of the day, here are some things that we can use to help those conversations get started and rolling. Before we jump in here, I don't want you to panic. What you see on this screen is not something that we need to use every single day. These are just a couple that we can pull from, that we can sprinkle throughout our week and let our students take over the conversation and share with us exactly what it is that they are reading. So I might see my kiddo sitting on the couch and I might pull up next to them and say, "So what's the big thing happening here in your story or in this chapter, in this part?" And pause them and have them share what it is that they're reading right in that moment. And sometimes students might even go back and look at the beginning of the chapter and do a quick reread to share with you. Asking questions about characters also often gets our kids talking a lot about what they're reading. Questions like, "So did anybody change in your book? Did they start out one way and then change by the end of the book? Did any of the characters realize something?" Often students in grades 3, 4, and 5, they're reading more challenging books with a lot more characters that are complex and are different. And so they have a lot to say about them. They're interested in these characters and want to talk about them. So why not talk about them with you, right? They'll be just as excited. How do other characters fit into the story? And here's a really important follow-up question with that. Why are they important to understanding the main character's life? Drawing our kids' attention to minor characters in the books that they are reading can help them do really deep level thinking that they may have not thought about before. And they have a lot to say about what it is that's happening in their book and the different characters and the roles that they play and how the story unfolds. Questions like, if I'm sitting reading with my child at home, wow, I didn't expect the character to act that way, did you? Why do you think he or she behaved like that? What do you think is going on here? These are just a couple of questions that if I'm reading together with my child, we can start having together. Like, wow, I was really surprised. Were you? And they might say, "No, I wasn't, because of this. I knew I read this earlier in the book." And then they're starting to think about the different parts that they've already read and connecting them to what they're reading right now. This is a really open question that students often have a lot to say and that you can really use as a springboard to a wonderful conversation. And that question is, what do you think the message is in this book? This question is really all about theme. And in the books that our kids are reading in these older grades, there's often more than one theme. And when students share what it is that they're thinking about the message in their book, they'll share things about experiences that they've had in real life. You might be able to use that as a springboard of things that they might experience as they get older or things that you have experienced. And that connection is so powerful for kids. They'll read in a very different way the next time they open their book. When their students are reading fiction or even nonfiction, what does this page or part tell you about? What are you learning here? You know, our kids love to teach us. And so having them sit with you and just share, what is it that you're learning here? I'm really interested in that. You'll start to see that they'll have so much to share with you. You'll be amazed. Does this book remind you of anything else that you have read? This is a really powerful question. The more connections that our kids can make with texts that they have read, even if they were 2 years ago, really does help them grow their knowledge. It helps them grow their thinking. It helps them grow their thirst for reading more and more. And this is something that we can do at home that sometimes is so much better than what we even realized. So asking that question of, does this kind of remind you of anything else that you've read about? Or like, oh, I remember when you were really young, I used to read you this book, and it was kind of similar to that. Do you remember that? Why do you think that the author wrote this book? This is a good question that we can have students think about, not just as a reader, but also as a writer. Would you write a book like that? Would you want to write a book with a message like that? Why? Have you changed your mind at all after reading? This is one of my favorites, I have to tell you. Whether I'm asking my students at school or asking my own kids at home, have you changed your mind? The more that students read, the more that they're exposed to different topics and different ideas, their minds change, their thinking changes. And it's really a wonderful thing to participate in and have those conversations about how their thinking is changing and why it's changing. And then you'll find that they'll be a lot more interested in different types of books and will really grow their repertoire of reading. And do you think that this book has helped you to understand a certain topic better? You know what I find often as a teacher? A student will start with one topic, they'll start with one book, and it will light a spark. And then they'll come in the next day and they'll ask for every book I have on that topic. Or they'll go to the librarian in the media center and they'll say, do you have any books on this topic? And so you can participate in that as well. If that spark has been lit and they are really interested in a new topic or that a topic that they're now understanding better, it might be something that you say, okay, well, maybe this weekend, let's reserve some books at our local library and pick them up. Or, you know what, let's find out some more about this together. And as you're reading, can you share with me when you learn something new? So parents, caregivers, these are just a couple of conversation starters that we can use at any part in our day as we sit and think about and talk with our kids. Having those conversations with our kids is so important and so powerful. And just as a side note before we leave, students in these upper grades also love to be read too. I know, sometimes we think they're in 5th grade, they can read on their own. I know that they're reading, they filled out their reading log. Okay, great. But I can tell you, if you walked into any classroom or any library with a class during a read aloud, you'd be able to hear a pin drop, even in these older grades. Kids love to be read too. So instead of maybe asking some of these questions during the day, if you found that the day was just too busy, snuggle up right before bed, have them open up that chapter book, read a chapter together, even have them read to you or you read to them. It's an amazing way to open the door to lots of really powerful and wonderful conversations. And as you know better than anybody else, parents are the first and best teachers. Thank you so much. Please feel free to reach out should you need anything at all, and we are all here to support both you and our kids. Thank you and have a wonderful day.